Support comes from the Rosa Parks Museum on Troy University's Montgomery campus. Located on the spot of Mrs. Parks' historic 1955 arrest and featuring exhibits that chronicle the history of the Montgomery bus boycott. More information at troy.edu/Rosa Parks.
From Troy Public Radio, this is TPR Podcast Presents, programming made where you live. I'm Austin Toy. Every week, we bring you selections from one of Troy Public Radio's 17 locally produced podcasts. You know, I always find that I learn more by listening than I do talking. That's especially true when I listen to Trojans Talk Research. It's a podcast hosted by Barry McKnight where he talks to Troy University faculty about their research. These are smart people, the kind who have letters after their names. In this conversation, Barry visits the Department of Biological and Environmental Sciences to sit down with cancer researcher Dr. Jacqueline Jones.
So we do prostate cancer research, and for those that are wondering what is that, prostate cancer is the abnormal growth of cells that starts in the prostate gland, and this is a cancer that affects men. And so one of the motivating factors for me in going into prostate cancer is my grandfather. Mm-hmm. My grandfather passed away from cancer, and excuse me, there are a lot of men in my life that I love dearly, and unfortunately, men don't always go to the doctors like they should regularly. Mm-hmm. So that was the motivation for me to start cancer research, and specifically prostate cancer. But my lab is interested in identifying what factors, what things help prostate cancer to grow and become so aggressive that it ultimately results in the untimely death of men.
Specifically, in your presentation, you were talking about, again, metastasis.
Mm-hmm, yes.
And you mentioned then that, for lack of a better phrase, Dr. Jones, mm-hmm. bone matter is a wonderful breeding ground for cancer cells.
It is. So in our field, we say that the bone it's another organ because it is able to grow its own cells. It's able to what we call rejuvenate, right? Or regenerate, I should say. But it's an organ within itself. It's full of different types of cells, and all of these different cells can release what we call growth factors. Think of growth factors like food.
Okay.
Right?
Right.
And the presence of all of that food or growth factors allows for the cancer cells to just keep growing. It's like this endless supply of food that just allows them to keep growing. And that is what ultimately results in death. For what we call, and that's why we say metastasis is the aggressive form, because metastasis means the cancer cells travel from their original location, which is the prostate gland. And then as the cancer becomes more aggressive, they migrate to a secondary site in the body. That's metastasis. And let me make sure I'm not going too in depth.
I get it.
So while prostate cancer can go to different sites in the body, it can go to the liver or the lungs, the preferred site is the bone. And that is because it's rich. It's a great soil for the cancer cells to grow and to thrive in.
The reason why I'm thoughtful about that is because several questions spring mm-hmm. up that I haven't even written down just because of what you're talking about. Yeah. And you mentioned growth factors, mm-hmm. Things that the public view of things of this nature. Mm-hmm. Prostate cancer, we've all heard about it. Most of us have dealt with it through ourselves or a loved one. But we all see those things, I would mm-hmm. imagine, as just entirely random. I mean, it just happens. Mm-hmm. I was watching your presentation, and it doesn't occur to me that that type of thing is random at all. There's so many different factors involved. Am I right?
Yes, absolutely. Your one's eating habits can contribute to an increase in growth factors, right? One's lifestyle, such as lack of working out, right? Obesity is shown to be the precursor to many different diseases, one being cancer. So there are many factors, even genetically. It could, when I say genetically, in your genes, right? You inherited it, that can contribute to these growth factors. So there are many factors that contribute to that.
What is FOXY3?
So FOXY3 is a protein, okay? So actually a transcription factor, but for layman's terms, we'll say it's a protein, okay? And this protein has the ability to alter our DNA. Okay. So it can, think of it as a light switch. It can go into your DNA, into the nucleus of our cells, and it can turn genes on or off. Okay. And what we found is a lot of the genes that typically are off are turned on in cancer. And our lab believes that FOXY3 is one of the mediators that is allowing for these genes to be turned on because they're normally off.
Again, the randomness of it. It's not the presence of that protein and that transcription factor seems like, it is a huge part of it.
Yes.
One of the other major things that I noted from your presentation was how much rechecking and rechecking. You're speaking to the students and the other professionals about we saw this. We went back and checked. We also checked it against neutral factors, and checked this. It seems as though, you take 2 steps forward, then a step back to check it. Then that's very important in research of this type.
It is. I think a lot of people, when we see doctors, right, we think of, especially students, they think of a medical doctor, or they think of a doctor of osteopathic medicine. But they don't realize that doctors, which are PhDs in research, we're the beginning. Medicine starts with us. Right? We're in the lab, we're creating medicine, we're creating and understanding pathways and how diseases develop. And so for us, it's important that we check and we recheck again. We don't want accidents because when we make mistakes, it ultimately leads to patients having issues because the drugs are not working or that misdiagnosis. So for us in the lab, it's so important that we check and we recheck again and we validate our findings so that when we publish our findings, there's no retraction because we're sure that what we found is accurate.
The research itself, and again, the project you're working on right now involving prostate cancer, this particular research, the presentation you give, typically where does successful, informative research that you've been conducting, what happens next?
So our next step and what we're working on is we're developing stable clones that we're going to put back into a mouse model to verify again that what we're seeing, what we call in vitro, so that means in the lab, on the bench, in the test tube, right? That what we're seeing actually happens physiologically, so in the mouse. And then we're also going to be working with another scientist who's known to create peptides. Those are small little proteins that are used in drug delivery. And we're going to create that as well. And so the next step would be to create a peptide and allow another company to come over and take it.
Final question I've got here. They're talking with Dr. Jacqueline Jones. It strikes me that your work, there's always going to be answers to try to find. Is that a motivation? There's never going to be a time when you sit back, when you push back from the research table and said, I have found everything I want to know. Yeah.
No, there's always going to be questions. And I think that's why I said I'm a lifelong learner. And I'm excited because I have a job forever. My job is to always ask the questions and find answers to questions that are unknown, and it's discovery. And I love that. If I had to say one thing that was great for me is I got paid to use my brain, my God-given brain, and I am excited about that. And I think there's nothing greater than that, nothing greater. And I hope students that are listening to this identify that this is another path for a career that you can go into. And the world is yours if you want it.
You can hear the full conversation with Dr. Jacqueline Jones on the Trojans Talk Research podcast on Spotify or wherever you get your podcasts. I'm Austin Toy, and this is TPR Podcast Presents on listener-supported Troy Public Radio.